I'm here to show you how I use the Kiinde system to use as a homemade SNS. I started out using a bottle, and these bottles have a vent that the tube will slide into. So if you have one of these bottles and can get a feeding tube, you can use one of these as well. I'll show you how to thread that through, although there's other videos that can show you how to do that. So there's always a little hole, vent hole, and you just thread the tubing through like that. And then you can put the whole nipple together. And screw it back on and put your milk in, and then you're ready to go. But I had this is another bottle that also has a vent that worked really well. You can see right there. And my son also liked this nipple as well. But I found that I liked the twist system. Before that though, and I had some of these, but I didn't know how I could convert them over to something like a lactate, which is a genius idea. This is the lactate system, and I found that my son had a hard time sucking out of this, and plus it was a pain to clean, and the parts were so many, and also you have to buy replacement bags all the time. I have seen online where people comment that they will reuse the bag a couple of times before throwing it away. So I'm going to leave this right here. The twist system is a bag-based system, and you can pump into it. If you have a pump, you can directly attach. They include these attachments. You can directly pump into the bags. Like that, and then you just put the top back on and store or transport. Then when you're ready to feed, the system is meant to be put into one of these holders like this, and then you add one of their tops, so it just snaps on like that, and then take the top off and you're ready to feed the baby. My baby really likes this nipple. This is the one I use if I'm feeding him a bottle. So you can snap that off like that, and it has its own case that snaps on, and so it's really easy to transport. When I decided to try to use the twist system, I got a used twist system, so the nipples, I had several nipples that came, and when I looked at them, they were all split. I don't know if you can see that, but this hole is bigger than it should be. I'll show you the other one. This is a new design, so you can see the hole is there. This is the old design where they have little bars, but then you can see the hole is quite a lot larger. So I decided that it should be big enough to thread through. This is the feeding tube that I'm using. It's a polyurethane indwelling. It says indwell on the tubing, which means that it's meant for use inside a little baby for up to 30 days. I don't know if you can see that, but it does say indwell on the feeding tube. It's a 5 French, and it's 20 inches long, and you have to get a prescription for it. Generally, I ordered some online and I had to get a prescription from my pediatrician. So this is the feeding tube. I cut off the little cap that goes on the end like this, but you can leave it on if you want, but it's a little easier to get in and out of the bags because it's a little bit wider than the bag top when it's attached. So I cut that off, and then I tried to feed it through. It was really hard to get it to push through, there, so it took a lot of time for me to do it the first time, so I ended up just leaving it combined most of the time. But then I discovered this idea. So this is a regular twisty tie. I took part of the plastic part off, and then I made the end into a tiny little hook. You can see there, I hope. And basically, I just poke it through right there, and then in the end, I hook it onto one of the little holes, the closest hole at the end, like that, and then I pull it all the way through, like a needle and thread, and that makes it a lot easier to thread. So you pull it through, and then you have your bag of milk. You poke it in like that and attach it, and you can also put it in one of these holders if you want. I sometimes do, I sometimes don't. And then you can push it down even further so it gets to the bottom of the bag. This isn't full, so it's not going to be easy to push through, but you can just thread it through until it gets to the bottom of the bag. And that's it. I wanted to show you that you can do this even with a nipple that's not broken. Here's a Medela nipple that is normal, and I did the same thing, just poked it through the top there and thread it through. And this takes a little bit more effort since it's not torn at all, but it will come through just like that. And this is actually pretty much waterproof. The seal is really tight around there because the hole is small. And so you could have basically a waterproof system there. If it tips over, then it's not going to drip out. I might do that with one of my newer kin ones that don't have the ripped hole, because I've had a few times where it has tipped over, I've knocked it over, and a few drops of milk have spilled out. No big deal, but it's pretty spill proof even as is with one of these ripped holes. But just in case you want a truly leak proof, at least for not without pressure. If you put pressure on it, it might spill a little bit, but yeah, you can use one with a regular hole. I like it because when I'm transporting or whatever, I can keep the bags capped, and really it is leak proof. And I'll show you, I mean, the bag size, it's a little bit bigger when it's all said and done, especially since these expand at the bottom. But this holds 4 ounces and this holds 6 ounces. So, but if you lay it on top of each other, it's only a little bit bigger. You could do the same thing with this. You could put in a little hole punch and hang it around your neck if you want. You can tuck it inside your bra. You can have it laying next to you. And you're only cleaning the tube part, the nipple, and if you reuse the bag, which I do, you clean the bag. But it's so much less work than all these little fiddly parts. And I like the tube length because I don't have to have this right next to me. I can have it sitting a little bit further away than hanging it around my neck, which I don't always want. This is just a regular syringe, so when I'm cleaning it, you just fill it with soapy water, hot soapy water, and push it through a couple of times, and then I flush it with regular clear hot water. You can boil if you want to sterilize the tubing, you can boil it. And yeah, that's it. I will show you what it looks like when it's all together. So here I have a Kiinde bag with some milk in it. So I take the top off, and here's my tube assembly, and I just drop it in there. I can make it a little bit longer so it goes all the way down. You can see it, just a little shadow right there, and pop the top on. I can adjust the length of it, and I'm ready to feed. You can also use it without the case. when the bags are filled, the bottom kind of expands, so they do sit up fairly well on their own. I sometimes will lean it against me. Usually it's not flat enough to spill out unless it's really full. Maybe it might fill the nipple, but it depends on kind of how full your bag is. And usually I'm leaning against me, something like that, so it's pretty stable anyway. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to share. I thought I'd also show you how I store if the baby hasn't drank all the milk in the bag, which is, my milk supply varies, so it's oftentimes he won't. So I just wrap it around the nipple like this, and you can either tuck it under if you have it with the case on or the holder on, or I will kind of just loop it underneath there, and then you don't have the tube flying everywhere, and I just stick it in the fridge like that. This doesn't work typically to put the case on. I mean, it might go on part way, but it's not going to go on all the way, but it might work in a pinch. That's it. Thank you. If you have other nipples lying around that you want to use rather than the Kiinde nipples, you can just use one of their adapters. This is the Medela adapter, but it works for most standards thread sizes. This is a Medela nipple, so it does kind of look a little wonky. It makes it a lot bigger, but if you wanted to use that instead, you can even get a longer feeding tube. This one is 20 inches. I think it would probably still be long enough, especially if you have the assembly close to you, but I just wanted to show you that you can use other nipples as well, that as long as it comes with an adapter. I don't know that this Avent nipple would have an adapter for it, so you might have to have more of a standard, but this Even Flow might. It's pretty wide, but there might be one that might work. This one, though, the way the nipple is done, it probably wouldn't. I'll show you. Because the way that this sticks out, you wouldn't have an actual seal with the adapter. It has to be more of a flat nipple like this. So because of this little bump right here, I don't think it would actually seal very well. You might be able to kind of force it and make it work, but it might not. If it tips over, it probably wouldn't be leak proof. But I do like this. I do like this nipple. But I found that this Kiinde Slow Faux nipple is the slowest nipple that I found. I don't have a Dr. Brown's Preemie nipple, but the size 1 nipples that I have are even faster than this one. Over time, they might get a little faster. I might have to replace them, but I think that's true with most nipples.